If you are interested in manufacturing, you probably heard of us. I did every single mistake you can make when you create your first company.
Necessity to start a startup studio. It mustn't be just read my report.
I should have read your paper earlier. So let's create 3 companies and see how it goes. They went to $500,000 ARR in their first year. And so I decided to start scaling the business. You just have to build the fucking companies. So we've been live for a little under 4 years. We started 15 companies, 15. Out of those 15 companies, 8 did a Series A. So this year will be a total of 22 million ARR. We are live in 1,200 factories. We are giving shares of the studio to every single founder of startup.
Renan Devillieres.
Renan Devillieres. Hi, my name is Mike Spock. I'm an entrepreneur, and now I am very happy because I've just recorded interview with an amazing Renan Devillieres, a founder of OSS Ventures, a French startup studio with amazing traction. 4 years, more than 20 million ARR, 15 ventures, 8,000 applications every year for the program for founders. It is a really great example of a studio, and I'm very happy because OSS Ventures contacted me after publishing my Big Startup Studios research. I was inundated with many messages from studio founders around the world, and this studio is an example of approach I suggest in this research. Hope you will find it very insightful as me.
Max Pog builds a startup studio.
So just introduce yourself.
Nice to meet you. I'm Renan Devillieres. I'm 36 and basically I've been a geek for my whole life. I took apart the first family computer when I was 8. So that's the kind of person that I am. I graduated in mathematics and computer science. I worked a bit as an economist at the OECD, didn't like it, and ended up working in operations, so factories, things like that. I was a consultant, I was a factory director, I was a supply chain director, and blah, 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 blah. Then I co-founded a technology company between San Francisco and Rio de Janeiro. I did every single mistake you can make when you create your first company, but at the end, the company worked and I ended up exiting at the Series B, and so made a bunch of money and used that money to start OSS Ventures, which is a venture specialized in manufacturing.
What was the year when you started?
I think so. It was 2019.
Are these open numbers? What it was exit?
It was Series B valuation of 2020, so a very good valuation.
Very good. What was your initial concept of the startup studio?
So I actually started a startup studio, not because I wanted to start a startup studio, really. I went back to Europe and I said, okay, I have some money. I love operations and manufacturing and everything. And I love technology. And having been living in San Francisco for 3 years, I understood a thing or two about like technology. And so I said, I'm going to be an investor in startups for operations and manufacturing. And so I did what every single good little nerd would do. I opened an Excel file and I crawled AngelList, I called TechCrunch, I did my homework. I started calling startups that were doing what I wanted to do. And so I made 400 calls in like 3 months. And I realized 3 things. 1, operations is 25% of GDP. It's 0.7% of startups. So there is no deal flow. 2, on average, startups in manufacturing are 1 or 2 standard deviation slower than regular tech startup, because it's very hard to prototype at a manufacturing company. It's very conservative. It's very different and blah, blah, and blah, blah. And 3, there was a like chicken and the egg issue with startup in manufacturing. And the chicken and the egg issue is either people from manufacturing were creating tech companies because they knew manufacturing, but they did not know how to create a tech company. And so those were so-so-ish companies. And on the other side, you had very tech companies, but they had no idea what a manufacturing company is. And so I said, okay, those are 3 big issues. And I'm not seeing myself being just an investor in that space. And so I called a lot of my like smartest friends around. And one of them, Riley, a guy from San Francisco, like one of the first employees of Airbnb, I called him and I said, I wanted to be an investor, but blah, 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 blah. And he said to me, look, first, you've been in France for like 2 months and you're already complaining. I said, okay, fair point. He said to me, okay, so you have 25% of the world GDP. Yes. And they badly need tech. Yes. And you have a unique edge because you worked for 10 years in manufacturing. Yes. And you are not finding startups there. No. So you just have to build the fucking companies. And I was like, oh, that's all right. And so I started reading about startup studio, venture builder and everything. And I stumbled upon that and I created the company with my own money because of the pain points, not because I was like in love of the model or anything. It was just the rational answer to an issue.
Necessity to start a startup studio. It mustn't be just read my report and decide I have to start. So, yeah. I love OSS Ventures because it's very focused. And when I read this phrase on your website, something like every week our team goes to a factory, I thought, oh wow, this is great. So this is really focused. So you understand problems, you understand customers, and you create products which solve these problems. Can you share what was your traction during these 4 years from 2019? What are you today? What is the team? How many startups, revenue, customers, partners?
Yeah, sure. So when I went to France, I said, okay, I'm going to invest 1 million. And so I did some math and I said, okay, 1 million should get 3 companies. So let's create 3 companies and see how it goes. And that was my goal. And so I went, and the first day I hired an intern and I picked up my phone and I started booking factory visits. And I was saying to factories, look, I'm going to come, it's going to be free, and you get an ex-Google guy looking for your pain points and saying, this has been solved by this has been solved by this, and blah, blah. So I did that in the first week. I found, like with the team, we found like 10 potential pain points and chose 3 to be launched. We hired entrepreneurs and we started working in building. In roughly 9 months, the first ever company, Valomat, died. And it died because 1, the founder level was not outstanding. 2, the business model was good, but 3, market timing was terrible. We did a marketplace for used goods in aeronautics just before COVID. No, don't do that. So that was the first company. In parallel, the other 2 companies, Fabric and Crafts, they went to 500,000 ARR in their first year. And we hired a bunch of Brazilian developers to help us build the product and everything. And the 2 companies they raised at very good valuations. And today combined, I think they're doing like 5 or 10 million ARR, just those 2 companies. And so after 1 year, I told myself, okay, that works. I can work with those numbers. And so I decided to start scaling the business. So we've been live for a little under 4 years. We started 15 companies, 15. Out of those 15 companies, 8 did a Series A. We are doing a combined, so this year will be a total of 22 million ARR. We are live in 1,200 factories for an average price of between 10 to 100K euro per year per factory. There are a little over 400 people working in all the companies. And I'm up 5x for my cash invested, which is mostly my cash.
So it's already like paid back.
So it's paid back in paper. We had 2 offers to buy companies, and very probably in the next 18 months, we'll have some like real liquidity, like cash liquidity. I think the things that really went well is that 1, the space is dying for good technology, like dying for good. What Tesla showed is that if you put software engineers in a factory, good things happen. That's basically. And so there is a real market demand for the things that we do. Second is we are able to up the quality of founders that are coming in. And also we now have a process which is called 12 weeks, 40%. We say to founders, look, we are going to work together 12 weeks. At the end of the 12 weeks, we decide if we create a company with you. You can say no to us, we can say no to you. 40% of the time, either the founders want to do something else or we do something else. And that improved dramatically the quality of the founders.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing that we learned, which is really good, especially now, is that most manufacturing companies are okay to pay upfront for 1 year or 1 year and a half of license. So some of our companies are able to grow 2x, 3x on their own cash, which is really good. And so that's how we kind of foster the growth of all the companies. In addition to the fact that they cross-sell, we share the different sales and the different clients between all the startups and everything. So we have a bunch of processes and everything. But those are the main things.
What was the first?
The first?
Yeah.
The first
you said that 3 points. Second was 12 weeks, 40 founders.
The point is just there is market demand for what we do.
Yeah. Understand.
There is huge market demand for what you do. And so, you always have that slide which is saying the total addressable market is the size of GDP. But it's one thing to read it on the slide. It's another thing to have checks coming from everywhere. So we do have checks coming from everywhere, which is good. If you drive past a factory, the average factory in the US or EU, it's 11 million per year spend on software. So you can take a bunch out of that and put it in your pocket if you're good and you deliver real value. And so there is market demand for that.
So I loved your trick when you said that first you came to factories and said, "Oh, I am for free here. I will help you to find some issues and help to solve it." So how you outreach to those factories and how they, all of them said yes to you, or you had to find some?
We have more than 70% of yeses. And still to this day, we do that. Still to this day. So today I have 18 full-time people in my team, and we do 2 to 3 factory visits per week. And so we have a very big database with 863. I checked it this morning. We have 863 times where we spent 1 day in a factory looking for pain points and how much they spend for software and what they want solved and are they satisfied with the software. And so I think it's the biggest database maybe in Europe or whatever, but it's just a database of what needs to be solved in factories. And I always say to factory directors, look, you can hire PwC or whatever consultancy you like the best, and they will charge you for interns looking on the web if people did things. Or you can have a bunch of technologists working for you for free, and basically we get data points and you get a report that is worth as much as one of a consultant. And so, it has huge traction. I
think that OSS Ventures is an ideal example for my niche focus studio. Because some studios, they are agnostic or generalists, and they cannot have such practice of, okay, we understand very good our customers because they focus on different aspects. And if someone, so for example, imagine that there is a founder who has some experience in industry production technology, and she thinks that, okay, I want to build my company. I understand this. I worked on a factory, but I will join a startup studio because they give resources, time, and they will choose your startup studio because you visited 800 something times factories and you understand it very good and you know how to sell upfront to those companies. Do you think that you don't have competitors in this niche?
So in this niche, so our internal numbers is there are a little less than 1,000 startup studios in the world. There is one in Germany focused on supply chain, but it's a corporate one, and so they launch very, very different projects from ours. And there is one in Japan that is from an industrial company, but it's more like hardware and everything, and we are software. So I wouldn't say that we have like competition. One thing about what you said is that I would say that one of our main insights from the past years is one, we always take founders who are not from manufacturing. We take founders who are from tech because they know how to scale a tech company, and we provide them with the manufacturing context. That's first. And the second is that looking and hunting for insights about which tech company can be created in manufacturing is very different from having manufacturing exposition. And so that's one of the reasons why Build Your Dream, which is the Tesla of China, or Tesla or SpaceX, they were wildly successful, is that they are questioning the way that has been done for 30 years. And so that kind of mindset, the beginner mindset, and being able to see things and say, no, it's not going to work like that, it's going to work differently.
So
And
people who work there for 10, 20 years, they don't understand that it might be done much easier and faster and more efficiently with technologies. So you are not able to find some great people in industry for founders.
Otherwise, Stripe would have been started by bankers.
Tell more about this program. How often do you launch it? During I don't know, once a year or 2 times a year? And what founders, how do you attract them?
We launch 4 companies a year, but we actually start 5. So one usually gets killed in the process. So we launch 4 times a year, 5 times a year, and we have at the other end of the funnel 4 times a year. The way that we do is that we have that huge database of pain points, of user interview and everything, and we have what we call spaces. And so spaces is a very big subject on the market that is a good market. There is not a big competitor that raised a lot of money. We don't look for that. And we have already between 3 and 10 clients potential that said, oh, if you solve that, I want in. And so we already have the first contracts in hand, and then we look for founders. And so the founders that we attract, 60+% of the founders that we attract are second-time founders. We love the profile of second-time founders. They did a little exit, like 1 million, several millions, but they didn't make like the life-changing big thingy and everything. And so there are a lot of things that they don't have to learn on our money. And they want to do a big thing. And also, when we go to those founders and we say, look, you are in a field that nobody understands, but it is a big field. And there are low-hanging fruits that you can create a company around. And just being a good tech company is a differentiator. And we have the first 3 to 10 clients, and you have a team right there, and they are building their 20th product with you. They instantly understand the value that we offer. And so we tend to attract those. Actually, one thing that was surprising to me is as soon as it started working, we were flooded with applications. Flooded. Like last year, it was 8,000 applications.
Wow.
For founders, and we're working with like 10 people per year. So it's, and the thing is, I think also with the VC winter and everything, people are starting to see that to build a great company, sometimes you have to have an edge, and so not chase the latest fad. You have to build in for some market that you deeply understand, and that has very high needs. And so yeah, we attraction is not the issue, clearly.
What sources do you have for founders?
So we are quite visible in the European ecosystem. If you are interested in manufacturing, you probably heard of us. We are also deeply infiltrated in the mafias, like the Stripe mafia, the PayPal mafia, all those mafias. We have our entry points. We also have some automations. Like if you quit a job at Google and you flew back to Europe, you probably heard of us. So we have all of that going on. And the biggest thing is finding the right founders, the right fit with our thesis and everything. For example, our last project is a marketplace for waste, for industrial waste, which sounds like the boring thing it is, but there is a huge need. And so for that, the founder that we found, and they found us, is the former founder from Embler, which is the Uber for like health vehicles. And it was a VC backed, very big exit, but with the liquid preference and everything, he ended up with an exit that was not so high. And so he said, okay, let's build something let's build something big and not have liquid preference. I said, yes, let's do that.
And what is the attrition of those 40 people? Like, first of all, I want to understand, out of 8,000 applications, what is important for you? And like, you're probably looking for exits and it's already a green light. But what also, like, what is very important for you? So what are the questions in this application?
So we have two questions that are very, very important in the process. I'm giving away secrets, so I hope the prospective founders are not looking at that. The first one is, tell us about the biggest failure you had in your life, like soul crushing, embarrassing, and everything. I want to hear about it, because to put it in a nutshell, we don't have good experience with people who are too good to be true and never faced hardships. So because being a founder is often like being embarrassed about yourself and going anyways. So that's one question that is very important to us. And so we look for grit, because grit is like the most important. So that's one. And the other one is a very funny one. It's saying, okay, can you tell me about something that you are in the 0.0001% in the world of? And so it's a funny thing, because we do that for founders, but also for employees. And so when prospective employee at OSS, I told him, okay, what's like something that, so the guy is 21 and he tells me, I think I'm one of the only people in Africa who self-funded studies in France and the US by creating a factory for palm oil. And I was like, yeah, you're probably one of the few. Tell me about that. So the guy had no money to go to do the studies. And he told me that he just built a factory to gain some money in 9 months. And I was like, okay, that's what we are looking for.
I heard one question, it's similar. Like, what's the biggest hack did you have in your business? Yeah, and if a person says that, oh, it works usual way, but I don't know what did we visit. And if you just understand that, oh, this person is out of the box and thinks differently, completely differently, and is able to solve some non-solvable problems. How is this program structured? Like, what do people do 12 weeks?
Yeah, so the whole program is usually between 9 and 12 months. And so there are three main phases. We call that promising idea, product, and promising company. So promising idea is you talk to a lot of people and you try to sell your vision. And when I say sell, I mean sell, like get some money. So at this time, it's one or two founders, usually a product manager and or a designer. And so they just fast iterate on the value they want to offer. The rule is they get out of that when they have 3 contracts signed. The current record is held by a team that at the 6-week mark had signed 8 contracts for a total contract value of $500,000 per year. And so we said, market validated. So that's the first phase. Some companies die before getting to the end of the first phase, like when you don't get contracts and everything. Second phase, so you
First
get.
phase is 12 weeks, right, or not?
So it is between 6 and 12 weeks. Second
Three
phase,
contracts. The goal is to get 3
yes,
contracts.
exactly, and it's iterating every week and having like a very structured process.
Am I
The
right
second,
that there is, that there is no MVP yet? So
it's
you
Figma and
right.
sales deck. You don't need a lot more than that. So Figma and sales deck. When it is validated, and also why we do it with 3 contracts, we do it to make sure that you can sell more or less the same thing to allow for replicability. So the second part, you get coders, so between 2 and 5 full-time coders. You get generally 1 growth manager also, so your team is like 7 people total. And you have 2 goals. Goal 1 is satisfying those clients that you signed. And goal 2 is doubling your clients. And so usually 80% of companies get there. And it's a 8 to 12 weeks period. We have a record at 4 weeks. Like one time in 4 weeks, they were able to code the thing and everything. And when you go there, you go to what we call promising company. And so you ended promising product. And so promising company is you will basically get rid of all the OSS resources, so the coders, designers, and blah, blah, blah. So you every single OSS recruits the girl or the guy that will replace him or her. And so they all recruit, and so you create your team and you keep growing. And usually you get, after 9 to 12 months, you have $500,000 annual recurring revenue. You have like 10 clients, 15 clients, something like that. And the product works and you are de-risk. And so you are basically at product market fit. And now it's time to execution.
It's interesting to know those companies who are still active and generate revenue. What was the time from, I don't know, idea, enrolling the founder to the first revenue?
So on average, it's 4 to 5 months. But we have a record man at like 6 weeks, and a very, very good predictor of revenue is how fast you get to your first euro, because it has implication, I think, with like the speed of the cohort, but also the market response, everything. And so everything that we do is aiming for like speedier time to first euro to everything. And the thing with the OSS is that so all the companies share the same CRM. And so usually in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the cohort, they get between 20 and 50 calls just on OSS network, and with very qualified people, because those are people that we visited and we know they have the pain points, and so they will share insights and everything.
Yeah, so it is the point where startup studio binding team is very important, because if any of those founders want to start separate startup without this base, it would probably be, I don't know, at least 2 times, 3 times longer to get to the revenue. And
also they have kind of the halo effect of OSS, because OSS is starting to be like kind of known. And to be frank, I'm not a big like theoretician of all of that. It's just that when I did my initial user research and I called 400 startups, the main factor that was explaining the lack of speed in manufacturing startups was the lack of access and methodology to do just that. So I said, okay, let's build that, and it will be cash efficient. And so it is. So.
Am I right that you read my research on startup studios?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, because I explained in the last, like my vision for startup studios. It seems that you got it 4 years ago.
I would have not been able to write any of what you wrote 4 years ago, because it was just sheer like iterating on the model and getting there. I didn't have like that big vision and idea. I just said, I'm going to solve those issues that I saw when I wanted to become an investor. And so I tried solving it. And I stumbled upon the studio model. For my inspirations, I was extremely inspired by OSS Ventures and by eFounders, formerly Nexa, and also quite counterintuitively, the French government has a fund dedicated to startup studios. And so I had a very interesting talk with them when I started the company. And so I kind of took all those like grandfathers of venture builders and threw them into my vertical.
Can you tell more about investments? Like what was, you said that 1 million was yours. And then when you started to fundraise, in 1 year or earlier or later, and how much? And
so I was lucky enough to be able to be in a position to make some investment of my own. So I put the first million. I put another million in and a little more than 1 million in the company. And then TKO Capital, which is like the second largest private equity actor in Europe, they actually came to us because I went to one of their companies, like a company that they invested in, like a manufacturing company. And so we went and we did a report. And so we put the report. And then we said, hey, that thing that you have, I think we can solve it. And so one of the companies that we had started solving those things. And actually, after that, the CEO showed good results to his investors. And he said, this was done with OSS Ventures, it's really nice. And so TKO came because of the portfolio company help that we did with them. And they said, okay, we are going to invest. And so if you want total numbers, in 4 years, we invested a little over 5 million euro. And the total of the valuation of the companies, like the shares that we have in the companies, is a little over 25 million, like 26 point whatever.
5x on paper, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it is with very conservative valuation. Like we take 25% of each companies, and we get diluted when they raise funds. And they do 22 million ARR. So valuation is not through the roof compared to ARR, which is funny because I think it's healthier and it gives us a lot of room for growth. So that's good.
So total valuation is a bit higher than 100 million.
Yeah.
And so you raised 5 million. Do you have some fund near your studio, or you just have only holding company? So what is your structure?
So I should have read your paper earlier, because we just started adding the fund. And so we started adding the fund. We did the first closing of something like 4 million. And we are exercising the anti-dilution right that we have in the companies. And so we are launching another fund of 30 to 50 million just to follow the companies. So, for example, we have 3 companies currently in the portfolio that are doing with very high probability, more than 5 to 10 million ARR, while growing profitably. And so at some point they're going to raise funds, and it's going to be like way out of the current funding capabilities of the studio. So we want to be prepared for that.
Great. And you said that you had one co-founder of a studio, or your what is your team, and what are your co-founders? Only two?
We are 3 co-founders. I'm majority co-founder and the CEO, and I have 2 co-founders. The first is Michael Valentin, and so Michael Valentin is the guy who wrote the book about the Tesla projection system, and he's very well known with factory directors and everything in Europe, so he's very known in that. And the last one is Charles Bouygues, and Charles Bouygues is a former factory director and digitalization expert at McKinsey. So we kind of gathered that. Those are the founders. And then I have 19 people in my team. For example, my chief revenue officer, Jean-Philippe, he was a former sales director at HP, but also he was the managing director of Gympass in Europe. And so he managed the team from 0 to, I think, 20 million ARR, something like that, in Europe. So he knows a thing or two about scaling B2B sales. I also have a CTO, Quentin. And my CTO, he was CTO at 3 companies, one of which was valued more than 200 million. and so is day-to-day helping with the teams. So basically, those are the people from the core team.
Your team is offline focused. I mean, is there a place where you gather, where you work full time?
No, so I'm a very it's weird because I'm kind of traditional in that sense. We are all located in the same office, and so we work by war room. So when we create a new startup, we put the name of the startup, and you get your own space, and you get like those things where you do the design thinking and everything, and so it's very collocated. Early stage remote async, wow, so hard. Like it's already so hard. I don't want to add another layer of complexity.
Okay, but you don't try to hire experts in industry and manufacturing. You are attracting tech software
Only.
founders. So I think
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's
only.
not a problem. Do you use AI tools in your processes?
Yes, a lot. So we use it mainly for code and content generation, like a lot. And then we use it for fake user interviews. Like you are that kind of user, talk to me, and blah, 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 blah. And we are using it also to do basically the analyst job. Like, hey, ChatGPT, give me all the companies and startups operating in this space, and give me an estimate of the total sales by 2030 in that space and everything. So it really speeds up the process.
What was the hardest problem for you during these 4 years?
So I would say that the very, very hard problem is understanding what can be a repeatable asset. So something that you can use and reuse, and it will be exponentially better with each cohort. And getting rid of like mental models that are not adapted to each startup. And so not doing blindly the same thing for each startup and killing them in the process.
Can you give examples for those two things?
Yes. So the first 3 companies that we did were SaaS, priced at 20 to 30K per year per factory. The way that you have repeatable growth for those companies, we kind of found a playbook. And the playbook is you go bottom up, you call the factory directors because they can sign the thing. And so you call the factory directors, they sign the thing, they're happy. And then you go to headquarters and you deploy to the 10 factories of the client. And that is very repeatable. That is a very good thing. And it's very clear. And the founders, they don't need like anything more complex than that, and it was and then we created the first what we call horizontal platform, and those are more priced like 50 to 100K per year per factory. It's very embedded in the operation, so it's a strategical decision to decide to deploy those, and we applied by applying the same growth playbook. It was a disaster because factory director had no right to sign for those. So we were stuck in much longer sales cycles with them. We were not understanding the dynamics, especially the dynamics with the consultants, the IT consultants who were there and in charge of doing that architectural thing and everything. And so we killed one company because of that lack of understanding. It was a good company, should have been a very good company. And then we understood that for those, you get the first 3 contracts because you have high intimacy with the C-level. And then you put in motion a very different sales machine with a very different profile of CEO. You need to have a CEO who is able to talk to a C-level rather than your typical like guy from like in his 20s and doing things. And so this is one of many, many examples. I have examples in technology also. I have examples in design. And so the really, really hard thing to do is to try to get rid of some preconception that you have because you already were successful with some startups, and recognize the differences between companies. And so the latest thing about that is, for example, we had that mental model that's saying that self-serve doesn't work in manufacturing. We had never seen a company that was managing to do self-serve. And then came Energix, which is a software to lower your energy consumption when you are in a factory. And they pulled it off. And so they are self-serve. And they showed to us that not everything is a playbook. A lot of it is a playbook, but not everything. And so that kind of mental agility and humility to be able to recognize that while keeping all of the things that you did from the previous startup to accept, it's really hard. It's a humbling experience.
What advice can you give to entrepreneurs or to studio founders who think, how can I learn faster how to build startups in my niche or how to operate a venture studio?
First, you need a lot of humor. That would be my first advice. Then, at least for OSS Ventures, proximity with the end user and the vertical was key in the success. Ability to create repeatable sales assets, repeatable technological assets, and be obsessed about speed in a vertical that is not used to speed was a key differentiator. I would say that founder quality is everything that matters in the end, because if founder quality is zero, your project goes to zero. So it's a multiplicative effect. So I would say that, and also that is more personal, but I created that studio because I wanted to be able to bring tech to manufacturing in my home country in Europe. I would say that having a thesis and like a purpose that is bigger than just making money and doing things is important to recruit the best, but also to keep going when it's hard. Like it's really hard. Like when entrepreneurs tell you about the start of their journey, it's always hard. And a venture builder is basically the start of the journey all over and over and over again. So it's really hard. But in a weird way, that's where I like to be. So.
Great. One more question. It is not the end. So I asked the advice just because it was interesting. But yeah, what do you think about attracting multiple co-founders to one startup? So do you usually start with only one person, or you then combine them into some groups?
Yeah. So we usually recruit one founder, and then we validate and they validate us, and then we recruit the pair. More and more, we are starting with the technical founder, so CTO/product type, and then we add a CEO. Mm-hmm. There's a good reason for that, which is that when you're iterating on what your product should be and what your offering should be, you can end up with very, very different types of CEO with different sales skills and different life stories that are aligned with what you want to sell in the company you want to build. And so usually we do that. I would say it's 90% of our last 5 projects.
And CTOs, they call and try to sell?
Yeah.
Wow. And then you invite CEO and tell to him.
Yeah, exactly.
You tell that, oh, CTO already signed 6 contracts. You had to sign 100. Do you think there are some aspects of startup studio which you think you have experience? I mean that something I didn't ask you yet, but you understand that, we actually tried this and this worked amazingly, or opposite, we many studios do this, we tried, it doesn't work. So maybe you have something exclusive from your experience to share.
So I think the one thing that we're really good at is finding the right pain points and how to solve it with tech in an industry that is like not used to that at all, like at all. I would say also that we are killing more than 90% of our ideas, and half of what we kill it because we can see the scalability. And so it's really easy in manufacturing to do things that don't scale, but forever. And so end up as a really music company. So let me take an example. So it's very nerdy, but in factories, asset geolocalization is a pain point for which people are okay to pay 1,000 euro per year per factory. Like if you have the geolocalization of every single asset and a map and some kind of history for 1 year in a SaaS, people pay 100K for that. With current state of technology and what we know about technology, if you want to do that, you have to do like 10 months deployment cycles. And so you don't scale your consulting company. So we don't launch that company, but we know that there is the willingness to pay. And so we kind of became good at that because in manufacturing, it's very easy to get dragged down to a kind of consulting plus company. And so we kind of got, I think, good at that. For what works for everyone or not for everyone, I don't know. But one thing that was interesting is that the OSS community has a lot of engineers. We were struggling with creating a community, like everyone knowing everyone and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So we are trying to do drinks and everything. It was awkward because people were not talking to each other. And then we found something, which is that everyone wants leads. Everyone wants to do sales. And so when we started gathering people, and for 2 hours, people were giving leads to each other and increasing sales, spread like wildfire. And so we got that. And I said, I got the incentives wrong. Like community is not about like having a Slack channel and doing emoji. It's about incentives. So we said, okay, so sales is an incentive, but another incentive, I'm not sure a lot of studios are doing that. We are giving shares of the studio to every single founder of startup. So if we do 2 unicorns, everyone gets rich because they have shares of the parent company.
What is interesting? What is option pool for founders?
So 10 points total of the company goes to all the funders.
How many?
10 points.
10. Wow, 10% of companies. So it's distributed to all founders.
Yeah.
Great insights. Can we share it in the interview? Yeah, sure. Great. It's great.
Thank you.
I love it very much. Yeah. Okay, let's now finish. Renan, thank you very much. This was wonderful. I believe this is a model for many studios to follow. Start with creating close-knit relations with customers. Find the pain points and then many insights. It's really very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Max Pog builds a startup studio.